Up at a 5-day mindfulness-based stress reduction retreat with John Kabat-Zinn and blew the fucking top off my head.
Wow.
How is this helping veterans? You want to unite everybody in the country, say this is helping veterans. They won't care what you're doing, and I feel the same around psilocybin and MDMA and these other things that are really healing trauma. Your subconscious mind is so much more powerful than your conscious mind. And that's the software. And so we're programming the subconscious with our conscious mind. We got AI, we got technology, we got advanced manufacturing, we got blockchain. Let's start thinking about how we're going to take this shit and convert it into the next great version of America. America's got another version ahead of us.
Raw, uncut, and unapologetic. Welcome to Men Talking Mindfulness.
That's right. We have 2020 presidential candidate, former District 13 Ohio Congressman, author of A Mindful Nation, and former high school quarterback star, Tim Ryan, with us today to discuss the current crises facing men and boys in our country, what we can do about this growing problem, and what changes need to be made regarding mental health and healthy masculinity. Tim, so glad to have you here today.
Thank you. Went all the way back to high school.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate that.
No,
all my old injuries came back. I'm like, yeah, that separated shoulder, there that is, my knee, my back. Yeah, that all happened because Greg Kuzma didn't block for me when he was supposed to. Well, what are you going to do?
I don't know if you know this, but Greg's a listener of the show, Tim. So,
oh, is he really?
Good. Damn it. Kuz, you're killing me.
That's right. All I could envision right now is Napoleon Dynamite with Uncle Rico and talking about his high school glory days and talking about, hey, I could throw this steak over those mountains.
There you go.
Anyway, we'll relive our glory days later. But hey, Tim, very excited to have you here. Thank you so much for taking some time. And for the audience, hey, if you're curious about attaining a better mood, physical health, and I lost my mouse.
And mental clarity.
There you go.
Then check out our new sponsor, Nourish, right? That's spelled Neurish. Neurish. It's a powder supplement that can upgrade your health from the inside out. Head to mentalkingmindfulness.com for more. Also, and Tim, you're welcome to join us. We're going to go to Texas on October 19th and do a Spartan race, with a bunch of dudes.
Wow.
And for more of that information, head to mentalkingmindfulness.com.
There we go. Thanks, Will, for picking on my slack. My mouse went crazy and my notes went all over the place. And you know me, I'm like Ron Burgundy if my teleprompter isn't up in front of me.
Right. It's true. It's true, Tim. It's true.
Nourish?
Yeah. Who put a question mark on the teleprompter?
I told you not to do that.
We're going to have a lot of fun here. All right. Well, as I was saying before we hit record here, Tim, we also like to kick off the show with a grounding practice. And now that my mouse went crazy and I got lost and discombobulated, I definitely need that one breath grounding practice. So I'll go ahead and lead it. So for all of us, the three of us here, and for our audience tuning in, be that by video or audio, go ahead and get comfortable and whatever is safe for you. And let's just let a breath out, bringing our navel to our spine. And paying attention to that emptiness, holding empty for a second, and then a nice, slow, deep breath in, holding full at the top, and letting it go, and noticing that breath go, noticing what that feels like, bringing some movement into your body, maybe wiggling your fingers, wiggling your toes, rotating your neck around. And all right, there it is. One breath grounding practice. Hey, thank you all for being here, for tuning in. For sharing our podcast. And I know this episode is going to be one that you want to listen to and you want to share. So share it far and wide. But that said, let's jump in. Will, I'll kick it over to you to start.
Well, Tim, again, great having you here. And give us a little background, like what brought you to the practice of mindfulness and how has it changed your approach to like life and leadership?
Well, I was a high school football star back in the day. And
we're going back.
And this one game, we were down 21-7 with three. No.
I love it.
Lord. Yeah, it's kind of a odd journey. I grew up Catholic. I went to Catholic schools. And it's all kind of hazy now that I'm going to be 52 years old. But there was a few year period in there where I was, watching sports, and I remember watching Phil Jackson and watching what he was doing with the Bulls in the 90s.
Yeah.
And I bought his book called Sacred Hoops, where he goes through how his own personal journey, but then how he started to play with when he coached in the ABA, and I forget where, I think it was the ABA, and then he ended up with the Bulls, but how he was trying to take these practices and teach a player. So I got kind of like, boy, that's really interesting. Right around that time, I had a priest who was always around our high school, whose church was like a couple blocks away, Father Crumley, teach me centering prayer, which was the Catholic kind of old monks used to do it. And Father Thomas Keating has written books. It was a whole contemplative centering prayer movement in the country at one point. And he taught me the centering prayer. I was like, dang, that's really good, and then that just kind of evolved. And I was like, and still am, like a huge Wayne Dyer fan, huge Deepak Chopra. That was kind of in their prime at that point. Really rolling, and got into that. And then eventually, ran for Congress, and I was a few years in, did a couple of retreats that were like a day and a half at Zen Mountain Monastery up in the Catskills in New York. And then about 2008, right after the election, I was in Congress for probably 6 years at that point. And I wasn't burnout, but I knew I was going to be burnout. I was burning it at both ends. I was a young member of Congress. I was traveling the state and country. And I ended up at a 5-day mindfulness-based stress reduction retreat with John Kabat-Zinn, and blew the fucking top off my head.
Wow.
I mean, it hit me. Day one, you want to climb out of your skin.
No
day
kidding.
2, you want to like call your mom and like say, I need help, mommy,
And apologize.
And by day 3, you don't want to talk to anybody else the rest of your life. You're like, this is amazing, like, I don't need to talk to anybody. I'm completely fine like this. And it just reoriented me, it just recentered me. And that was that. And I went up to John after. I'm like, we got to get this in our schools. At that point, John, as you'll know, like the vets were coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, really, really hurting. So we got to get this to the VA. We got to get this in the healthcare system, because stress is so much a big part of how sick we are. And John said, I'll introduce you to people and who are all doing research and stuff in these different fields. And that was the beginning of the Mindfulness and the book I wrote. And that's kind of how that was kind of the evolution of the whole thing.
It's left quite a mark, obviously.
I was just going to say the same thing. We recently had George Mumford on,
oh yeah,
Coach Phil Jackson and Michael Jordan and Kobe. And he was phenomenal. His recent book was it Unlocked?
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Great, is it really
read.
great?
I highly recommend it, Tim. It is so good. It is so good.
So, when talking about books and writings, you've written. To me, the answer is clear. We don't have a positive idea of a man's role today, and therefore we don't know how to guide boys into manhood. How do you think we begin to change this tide and this crisis?
Well, I think you could probably trace it to kind of the erosion or dismantling of a lot of these institutions, corruption in some of the institutions, whether it's the Boy Scouts or the Catholic Church with the altar boys.
Mm-hmm.
These rites of passages that we used to have that, cued boys up, say, I can't do that bullshit no more. You're a big boy now, or that's juvenile shit. Stop, here we go. Next step. And just kind of walking, young boys through that what was cute when you were 9 is stupid when you're 11 and destructive when you're 13 or 14 or 15, let alone 30 or 40, And so these institutions, there's very few left that will walk kids through and boys through. And I think a lot of that too, like with the erosion of jobs, like a lot of times you graduate from high school in Youngstown, Ohio, and you go to the steel mill and you join the union And then you'd have to go to union meetings and you'd have to show up at work on time. It was like there was no bullshit. Like you were moving into adulthood, and then you had to learn how to handle your money. And then it went to, well, we don't have those jobs anymore. And I think a lot of boys started to kind of saw, it's like kind of like a Bruce Springsteen song, but like the promise that was there isn't true anymore. And maybe it was never true, but we kind of thought it was. And I think that began the distrust of institutions, and lost the economic opportunity, and people just started kind of wavering. I mean, you guys, we talked about sports. Like we probably all had old school coaches who, there were lines you didn't cross.
Yep.
And there were standards that had to be met around both performance and behavior. In practice and, developing yourself and all that stuff. Yeah. But now it seems like today, if you're not in an athlete lane, and I'm glad so many women have that opportunity now, but what are the other boys doing?
Right.
Gaming.
Very true.
There's no shop class. There was a diminishment.
No wood shop.
There's a diminishment of that role in society. Everyone had to go to college, and it's just like everything conflated at the same time. And I think that's kind of, and a little bit of the politics of the culture stuff about, women and supporting women and promoting women, which we're all for.
Of course.
1,000%. Like my kid wants to go watch Caitlin Clark play. I mean, he's like,
that's cool.
Yeah.
It's awesome. But when there seemed to be a whole focus on that, and that even men were bad because some men prevented the upward mobility of women, which of course was the case, but it's certainly not all men, and certainly not kids.
Right.
So I think in that whole process over the last decade or two, boys just felt like they didn't have a place to go economically, culturally, and we failed as men to give them some kind of, real substantive ladder to work up. And so they defaulted to the only guys that were talking about how bad they were hurting.
Right. Yeah. It's unfortunate that with raising up women, a lot of people feel that it's a zero-sum game, and that by raising up women, we have to knock men down. We can raise both up at the same time, and I think that's what people need to realize, that by raising both up at the same time, we raise everybody up.
Yeah, and what's better for a woman than a strong man?
Exactly.
A well-adjusted man. Not that I'm well-adjusted, but just in theory, I think that would be great for women.
You're working on it, Tim. We're all a work in progress, right? We're all a work in progress for sure.
When you say strong, I mean, we're not necessarily speaking physically strong, right? Like you mentioned, there's no shop in class anymore, or shop class anymore. There's no X, Y, and Z that's kind of helping men make that transition. And some people probably would think that by saying that, we mean that all men need to be lumberjacks and we need to be, 6'5" and jacked. But there's a strength that's much greater than physical strength, and that's emotional and mental strength. And I know that's where we were going with that.
I told a story, wrote a story at the end of A Mindful Nation about my grandfather, who was an Italian guy, steel worker, had a garden, just a great guy, but very gentle guy. And the eulogy that Father Ron Nuzzi, our family priest, gave for my grandfather was he had the strength to be gentle. He was a gentle man, but he had the strength to be gentle. And that always stuck with me. And I was like, dang, that's, he was strong, and he was, had good posture till the end, and he was a man, but he never was like tried to scare you, tried to intimidate you, was always encouraging. And that's what we're talking about. That's right. Especially in today, like easy thing is fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, fuck you, look how tough I am, fuck you, you're weaker than me, put people leaders punching down.
Yeah, no kidding.
And that's not John Ridley style, and I think that's what we're trying to build, is like that's the guy, you ultimately, look up to. When sports, you knock a guy on his ass and grab him by the hand, you pick him back up.
Lift him up.
Right.
That's right.
And then go back to the huddle and try to get him
Yeah.
again next time.
Right. Exactly.
This does not mean I like you.
Yeah, exactly. Let's
Right.
keep playing.
I respect you.
Yeah, I respect you. We'll catch up. We'll have a beer after the game.
That's right. That's right. But between now and then, I'm going to make you bleed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We just had Jocko Willink on the show this week, and
Oh, wow.
and he was he was saying like how he never raises his voice, like you never really even need to raise your voice when you're really grounded and kind of in your own skin, but also present and to the moment, to the awareness of other people, the situational awareness, and and this is what really mindfulness can help us do, right? It really helps us navigate the world in a different way. I mean, you're probably seeing it more than me, like being a constituent representing the people, seeming like everyone's hair is on fire, right? And there's like this outrage mob that is just kind of waiting for the next trigger to happen. Like, I've read a lot about your articles and stuff like that, watched some videos, like take us through like how mindfulness and meditation and these practices can kind of get us away from this like triggered society and this outrage and what'll help us kind of, what's the world like what is the world of a mindful nation? Like, what does it look like?
Yeah, I just think it's a pragmatic kind of world, where we're conversing with each other, we're sharing thoughts, we're sharing ideas. He's got the best solution. Doesn't have to be red shirt solution or blue shirt solution. Right? Who's got the answer? And as we all know, as we get a little bit older, most of the time it's kind of somewhere in between. It's like, we're talking politics, like sometimes it's a free market solution. But there are failures in the free market, and that means it's got to be a government solution. And if it's a government solution, how do we bring some of these efficiencies that are in the free market to government so that we're not wasting money, we're not, blowing taxpayer dollars, but we're working towards a creative solution. I also think creativity and imagination comes from some of these
100%.
practices where these ideas just kind of emerge. I always use the example of like when you're in the shower and you're taking a warm shower and you're relaxed, and all of a sudden, you have these thoughts that like, wow, like when you're tense and tight and closed, those don't emerge. But when you're relaxed and open, which you can develop a practice, it works. And I just think that we're living through like a great deal of delusion now. And it's on TV, and it's not one political side or the other. It's usually sometimes both. And you're like, are you kidding me? Like my wife's like a fourth grade teacher. So she's kind of my like gut check. She sees a political commercial this past season. She turns to me and she says, does anyone believe that shit?
Yeah.
It was
so
just
true.
so wild, and I'm like, I guess some people do, or they wouldn't run them. They're convincing somebody or something.
And like you said, on both sides.
Yeah, on both sides. And then to me, it's like, it's an openness, it's a gentleness, it's the spirit of collaboration that we need to get to. And I feel like we're bottoming out right now. And I think why I was excited to talk to you guys is that I think it is kind of time for the new order to emerge. But we've got to create that kind of context in which it's going to emerge out of, so it doesn't fall to some of the more toxic elements of society, because people are going to be looking.
Right. I totally. And it's also, I feel like we're like the divide, amongst us. And I feel like there is a deliberate need for division. So we're not listening to each other. We're not collaborating with each other. We're not like, finding creative solutions to major problems that are just going to continually screw us and maybe destroy our nation completely. It's just so disheartening right now. It's like, cause we're here with three men that we're having a conversation. We're like, obviously we're very much aligned in the same mindset as far as like what we want to see in the world and how we can actually facilitate change, through just being more aware, having these conversations, being open to new solutions, to being wrong. And I see so much of that or not happening in the political discourse.
Let me just say this. So, and I got a crazy journey that I'm just generally on, and the awareness piece is a big part of it. And kind of being in the present moment, trying to discipline your mind to be in the present moment. But I'm more convinced now that it's also about, and you can see this in like sports psychologists. I don't know if you guys have read like Michael Gervais, he was with the Seahawks, and Pete Carroll, who does a lot of extreme athletes. Yeah, he has a mastery podcast. It's also about what you tell yourself, and how your subconscious mind is so much more powerful than your conscious mind. And if we are like, and that's the software, and so we're programming the subconscious with our conscious mind, and I'm as guilty as everybody else. But if we keep, if our inner dialogue shifts for most Americans to say we're coming out of this better, you know, like I'm optimistic, and maybe the breaking and the bull in the china shop kind of scenario we're in now, or it seems like everything, maybe that needed to happen, you know, and maybe, the coach needed to throw a garbage can in the locker room to get everybody's attention.
Bobby Knight.
Not
Bobby
that
Knight
that's ever happened.
throwing a chair on the court. Bobby Knight, right? I mean, God.
He said the guy over there didn't have a seat. I was just throwing over for him. We've got to start, like Michael Gervais would teach, and I started using this with my 10-year-old. Like, you get these little phrases, mantras almost, that you tell yourself, like, I'm dialed in. I can do difficult things. I've done this before. And then you start to relax, because now you're not telling yourself whatever the negative rumination you had. You're actually programming the software to go do something else. And so I think and this is like last couple of weeks, I started reading some of these old books. Joseph Murphy has a book called The Power of the Subconscious. I actually just re-listened to Wayne Dyer's Power of Intention.
Yeah, I have it on my shelf.
It's all about planting that seed, and you're really programming your own software, and then your connection to your soul that's connected to the rest of the world, and to God, and to the infinite, or however you look at it. That's happening outside of your conscious mind. You plant it in there, and you start planting these seeds. And I think, like, we've had moments in our history where Roosevelt, in the midst of hell, is saying, we have a rendezvous with destiny. Now that's like, okay, now we're talking, buddy. What are we doing here? Rosie the Riveter, I'm going to the factory. I'm Victory Garden. I'm going to Europe. Like, tell me where we're going. Kennedy's like, we're going to the moon.
Yeah.
Not because it's easy, because it's hard.
Right.
And you're like, yeah, it's hard. Okay, but that's good. I like hard. Let's go. When was the last time we had that? You know what I mean? And not to get political, like when 9/11 happened, like W. Bush, who, I'd take him now for president. But he said, go shopping, right? What are we going to do? 9/11.
Yeah, exactly.
Go shopping. Yeah. Like, no, that's not. So we have to, as citizens, like, start reprogramming ourselves. We're going to come out of this. We got AI. We got technology. We got advanced manufacturing. We got blockchain. We got all this cool stuff that's happening. We're learning more about the mind that we've ever known. We've learned more in 20 years than we have in the past 200 on how the brain works. AI can help with that. AI can help with healthcare and preventing disease. And so there's all these like really cool opportunities that are out there. Like, let's start thinking about how we're going to take this shit and convert it into the next great version of America, instead of going, oh my God, just like, I'm not being critical, because I do it too, and I get caught in those moments, but I think we all got to start like waking. We got to create a little sangha of us waking each other up, like, what did, I forget the movie. I think it was Wedding Crashers. You're going down the negative town, buddy. Come on, get back. Owen Wilson was like going off. He didn't want to go to any more weddings or something. And he's like, come on, buddy. We got one more in us.
One more.
But we all got to kind of remind each other, like, America's got another version ahead of us, and we've got to help each other get there.
Yeah. And man, so much that you just brought up there that we've got kind of outlined in our notes here. But I'll jump right on that last bit with the technology and the AI. From your perspective, what do you feel the role for technology is in shaping, supporting, or perhaps even undermining healthy masculinity? And then how do you envision the future of work and masculinity in the age of AI?
I mean, those are some deep questions. Like we could have a symposium, and like the president of the United States should have a symposium
I
on
fucking hear
these
you.
very
Yeah.
questions.
Mhm.
And we should bring the great minds of our society today and just say, like, this thing is really powerful and it can go a lot of different ways. What do we do as a society to, cultivate the benefits of this and reducing the risks of this? I think would be very constructive for the country. I'm a little more optimistic on AI from a generally speaking. I know there are people that are concerned about it. I don't know enough about the technology on how you have controls of it or exactly how that would work. I'm sure there needs to be some, but we also want to make sure this is an American thing. I don't think we want this to be solely in the hands of a fascist, communist dictator in North Korea or Russia or China. I think we want to make sure it's part of a free society here with whatever those protections may be. But I do think there's an opportunity. I mean, it could be a real gift. Like we've got, tens of millions of kids who have trouble learning and can't get in the workforce. I think AI could be pretty good at trying to help us figure that out. There are solutions on the shelves of research institutions all over the world that uh, someone spent their life researching and nobody knows anything about it, or that it's even there. AI can plow through those documents and help us maybe understand something better than we ever could. But some guy spent 30 years with a company doing research or wherever, got a gold watch and went on his merry way, and we don't know anything about it. Same with healthcare. And so about saving money and all of this. So you take all the savings from that, you push that back into, better investments. That could be great. With the masculinity piece, that's hard, because again, you're getting into the job displacement. And so I think our goal has to be, and it's really hard for men, it's even hard for women, but not to be completely identified with your work. Work will come and go, but what's your passion? What's your purpose in life? Why are you here? Maybe it is your job. Maybe if your job's a vocation, maybe that's the case. But for a lot of people, it's just a job.
Well, I was going to say for, like you mentioned, for a lot of men specifically, and I know it's becoming more and more so for women as well, but they identify it because that's their way of providing, and providing for so many men is their purpose, right? So when they're jobless or when they have a job that's not providing enough, then they start beating themselves up a lot. But I also I've got another topic or another conversation about the AI and the technology. But Will, before I jump into that, I want to turn it back over to you. Ask whatever you were going to say.
No, I mean, just like, is there like an unwillingness to have this conversation? Because it's happening. Like, I mean, in 3 years from now, like, I mean, AI, what it could potentially be doing, and like, if it'll even be sentient, like, I mean, in your, in the lawmaker realm that you're kind of in, like, are people concerned? Are they, you know what I mean? Like, this is really happening to us, and it's really going to have an incredible impact, and we can create a positive impact on our society with AI, which I really appreciate what you mentioned. But like what we've seen with capitalism and new technology, it usually goes to and is rewarded and given the power is just given to a small few to manipulate the masses. So it's like, whoa,
Yeah.
like, yeah. So is there any kind of growing conversation within, the lawmakers in our country that like are starting to address this?
I don't see it. I did see some more regulatory initiatives come out of Senator Martin Heinrich. He's out in New Mexico, very thoughtful guy, who was really trying to help, get our arms around it. He was a great, press day or two for him in that initiative, and then I haven't heard much really since then about it. And so I do worry that we get so distracted by some of this crazy stuff that's day to day on the news that, as we all know, is irrelevant for the vast majority of the people in the country. and it distracts us from these really important conversations. And it's the fractured media and the algorithms and all that. But like you're saying, that this is now on steroids. I mean, you see what the algorithms have done to our country right now.
True.
Which
Very true.
That's probably one of the main reasons we're so divided, because everyone's down their own rabbit hole.
Well, if it bleeds, it leads. So the algorithms are going to feed into that, and that's going to pay the social media companies and pay the news media companies as well, which is kind of tied to the tech question that I had before, maybe more of a comment than a question. I don't know if you've read Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt's book. It's all about.
No, I've seen Haidt. I think I read it. Here's another book I read, I think.
Yeah, The Coddling of the American Mind. I think that's Haidt. So in this one, he talks about how social media has changed young girls specifically. In when Facebook came out, that was one thing. Then Instagram came out, but then the forward-facing camera on our phones, how those came out, and how girls were taking pictures of themselves and applying filters, so then other girls would see them looking quote unquote perfect and then compare themselves. But then the side that he addressed with boys is that with these things in our pocket, and for those listening, I'm holding up my cell phone, pornography became a big thing, right? They have access to pornography instantly, and how that has literally changed little boys' minds. It's rewired minds, having that instant access. But that was a thing that nobody talked about, right? We had social media, we had a new phone, we had a smartphone, we had forward-facing cameras, we had access to all these things. Nobody had a symposium, or at least not that I'm aware of, to say, oh, how's this going to change our brains? And I think you're spot on, Tim, is that we need to have many, many symposiums about how AI and the advent of machine learning and all these other technologies are, in fact, going to change us as individuals, going to change us as society, is going to change us as a planet. And we can control how that changes us, and hopefully push it in a way that it changes us for the better.
I mean, think about how if we use it in healthcare to detect potential diseases that may be 7 years out from us having any indication at all, that breast cancer, prostate, whatever, really understanding what you are genetically inclined to get sick from, or how foods affect you. Imagine we use that for our farmers to help them actually grow real food, and to, figure out how best to plant and this and that, and soil quality and all the rest. Same with education. All of a sudden, because it's apparent to me, and I see it in Ohio, but it's there's like two different societies happening at the same time in our country. There's really wealthy areas that are doing really well, and are clean, are nice, are well staffed with police and fire and good schools and all that. And those kids have access to technology, and they're going to learn about AI, and they have healthy lunches and breakfasts and all that stuff. And then you look at a lot of other areas. There's no tax base. The crime is an issue. The schools don't have the resources. It's pay to play for extracurricular activities and that kind of thing. You can't get mental health coverage in a lot of these areas because no one can afford to pay anybody. You're going to go to Columbus and make 50 grand out of school, or you're going to go to Athens County, Ohio, and make 33 grand a year, as a school psychologist or something. So you can't find the workers. And that is happening. And eventually, and Harari wrote about this, I don't know if it was in Sapiens or what book, but he's like, I think it was his last one. It's just going to constantly get the spread. The delta's going to get, the gap's going to get bigger and bigger. And that's bad for everybody. It's not great for the guys who are in the top tier. Yeah, you may be wealthier, but you have social unrest. You're not going to be able to find workers for your company. There's going to be all kinds of problems.
Well, why is there I mean, this could come back to mindfulness. Why is there such a backlash to emotional intelligence, to bringing more mindfulness and meditation to schools? You've been called the Congressman Moonbeam, because of your because of your ideals and your aspirations around this work. I mean, it's it baffles me all the time. I mean, a lot of these practices are considered woke, I mean, is it just like a way that people package them so that we can ignore them and not like actually speak to the truth of them and unite around them and create a better nation? It's like, I'm just confused. Like, where does this come from your perspective?
Well, I think if you're in the mindfulness space, right, you're meditating, you're working on mindfulness, you're writing books about it, you're not necessarily outward facing to how do we brand this thing. And that's really what I wanted my contribution to be around mindfulness, that I re-released as Healing America, is that how to frame it using kind of my political campaign mind. How do you frame this? And I always felt like you lead with veterans, right? How is this helping veterans? You want to unite everybody in the country that say this is helping veterans. They won't care what you're doing, and I feel the same around psilocybin and MDMA and these other things that are really healing trauma. So, we should talk about it in the sense of this is healing vets, this is healing trauma, that kind of thing. And then again, like America's culture is sports. Like we are a sports culture from August 15th until, through the new year, you're watching college and pro football almost every night of the week. Right. And then as that dies down towards the end, here comes college basketball in the tournament, and then
March
the Masters,
Madness.
and now the end. Yeah, and now we're now in the NBA.
Go Knicks.
Right. Awesome.
I'm in New York City. I don't care about your Cleveland Cavaliers there,
Well,
Tim.
nobody does now. They're gone. But like, it's not like, oh my God, here the Knicks come. Oh my God, Tatum's hurt. Oh my God, the Cavs are the best team going all year and they're out. Like we're just immersed in this stuff. And then you get maybe a little reprieve in July and a couple of weeks in August, and then you start it back up again. So I just say that to say, when these athletes train, they're using mindfulness practices.
I agree.
They're using centering practices. They're using breathing practices.
Right.
They're doing Wim Hof. They're doing cardiac coherence breathing. They're doing meditation. They're doing mantra or awareness or vipassana or whatever. They're doing something to perform at that level. So I always felt like, why is it that if you go to The Ohio State University, you get a study table, you get a great diet, you get prayer groups, you get meditation practice, you get obviously weight training, skill training, video training. But if you're in Bunk high school in wherever, high school, elementary school, you don't get access to any of that. And why are we doing that just for our elite athletes? We are the United States of America. These practices should be in every school,
Agreed.
and
100%.
Our kids should be eating good, and there should be psychologists there and social workers there. It's like I'm going to get on a little bit of a rant here.
Go for it.
I'm like always focused on economics, right? That's my like political, we got to unite around lifting everybody up, getting people to know fat. But I want you to think about this. We went through globalization and automation. We did all these trade deals, NAFTA, most favored nation, trade status with China. We generated trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars in wealth. And so just go from like 2000. We had 2 tax cuts that President Bush passed. Both of those went primarily to the top 1% of the people, top 5% of the people. And again, I don't hate anybody. I'm just saying that's what happened. We ended up in 2 wars. Do we need to be in them? Probably not. Trillions and trillions we spent on that. Then all the VA benefits of soldiers coming back. Spent a lot of money on that. And then we're now in the second round of Trump tax cuts, primarily top 1%. So my point is this. We generated all this wealth, and we made a choice to say, instead of not just throwing money at the problem, but coming up with innovative solutions like the ones we're talking about, social emotional learning, school gardens, healthy food, school psychologists, breath practices, breathing practices. I don't care what you're doing. Let the local school figure it out, like what practices they're comfortable with and not comfortable with. But imagine if we would have cleaned our rivers, cleaned our lakes, put this money back into the communities. Like, would Elon Musk still be a billionaire? Yeah. Warren
Right.
Buffett wouldn't have felt it. No one would have been hurt by the thing. And we would have put all this money back into lifting all these people up. But we got put, oh, you're just going to throw money at the problem. Well, yeah, I mean, you need a little bit of money. Like,
Right.
you talk to a business guy and they have a problem, they kind of probably put some more money behind marketing or more money behind this or more money behind that. So you need a little bit of that, but you also need the new ideas. And so end of rant coming in 10 seconds. We have to have the new ideas if we're going to tell those folks, hey, we can't do the tax cuts for you anymore, guys, but we got some really cool shit coming that's going to it's all science-based. We got research on it. It absolutely works. You know what most of those guys will say? Absolutely. Let's do it, America. And that's where I think we need to be.
And it's going to take care
I forget what the fucking question was.
No,
Will,
but that's I got
my
you.
answer.
I got you, Tim. That was a great answer. But what you're speaking to, right, will take care of one of the core problems with men in this country is purpose. Like if you're like, hey, we're going to get behind, we're going to clean this river, we're going to go build this, we're going to do that. Men can be like, yeah, let's go. And just imagine that, like, because it's also you're aspiring to a higher purpose, it's a higher cause. It's not about you and your life, but but also it's like helping the country. Like we have this amazing American spirit that is definitely lacking right now, And if we can, raise that spirit on the, from the inside, right, with like what you're talking about, like would just really begin to change things.
We have suppressed the American spirit because it went from Civilian Conservation Corps and Peace Corps and Vista and be an engineer so you can help us go to the moon, even if you go off the Northrop Grumman to go shopping. I can do this all by myself. Don't worry, we're good. Just go out and do your thing. And Washington will solve the problem, or your state capital will solve the problem, as opposed to we're all going to solve the problem. Like we're all responsible for this in some way, shape, or form. And so John Rizzi, right? My grandfather, he was an usher at church. He helped build the elementary school that I went to. And there's a picture of him laying bricks
How
to
cool.
the new school. Like he was, involved in the community. Someone got sick, my grandmother made a pot of soup. My grandfather would go drop it off to somebody. Like he was always, because that was that World War II participatory initiatives that needed to happen in the country, and we stopped challenging people. We spend too much time comforting people, which is fine. But I think what we're talking about here is challenging young boys, not just comfort. I mean, we're sorry that it's gotten this point, and we messed it up, all of us. So. But here's how we get out of this. Let's go build shit. Let's go do shit. You gotta step up. You got responsibilities too here. And it's not just, mommy, daddy state, nanny state stuff.
I think we're also responsible for the educational system, right? You talked again about shop class, and I'm not saying that shop class is the answer to everything, but in education, I mean, I learned what an amoeba was, and I learned what the Mercator projection of a map was, and this is all stuff that
Tell me what both of those are real quick, so I can.
I know. But where are you going?
Where I'm going is that stuff hasn't come into play in my life at all since I've been an adult. But you know what has come into play? My challenges with emotional regulation, my financial education. If somebody says, hey, do your taxes, I'm like, this may as well be written in a foreign language. I have a CPA that does that. I think our educational system could be completely revamped to include emotional regulation, mindfulness practices, meditation, financial education, and start very young. I didn't know how to balance a checkbook, even though I was a math major. I struggled balancing a checkbook when I was younger and living off a budget. But now I'm getting onto a soapbox here, Tim. But Are you familiar with the Holistic Life Foundation at all?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
good.
Ali and Ottman Smith and
Love those
Andreas
guys.
Gonzalez.
Those are
Fantastic.
I wrote about them in my book.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
hell yeah.
Yeah. And
I've
they've
known
got,
those guys for a long time. We've had a few adult beverages together over the
oh,
years, too.
nice. Well, they wrote Let Your Light Shine, and we've had them on the show, and they are doing, so for the listeners who are not familiar with HLF, the Holistic Life Foundation, they're in Baltimore, and I think they were growing since the last time we talked to them, but they started in Baltimore, bringing mindfulness to inner city kids, and it changed how they showed up at school. It changed how they performed. It reduced the number of disciplinary events, no detention, no suspension, no expulsion, or at least reduced numbers there. I think actually there was a time when it was completely zero. And they're doing what I believe needs to happen on a national scale. Bringing this stuff into educational systems from the very get-go. I've got 3 young kids, an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a soon-to-be 4-year-old. And, they do what 8, 6, and 4-year-old kids do. They throw their tantrums. But there's times when
They raise hell.
I have to, they totally raise hell. But
They do have your DNA. So
they do. Well, they do have that. But more importantly, they have my wife's DNA, and she is a hellraiser. She's fantastic, and I love her for it. But the bottom line is I'm starting to try to teach them mindfulness practices, and I'm seeing changes in them. So if it's not in the educational system, which that takes time to change, where can it be? It can be in us as parents. We can teach our children these if it's not there, and it's incumbent upon us to make these changes early. Again, so more so a rant on my end here, Tim, than a question.
No, but I love. Let me speak to that for a quick second.
Yeah, please.
There's great programs. One's called Centering Pregnancy, and then one's called Centering Parenting. And the Centering Pregnancy gets groups of 12 high risk of pregnancy women and moms, and they meet every couple weeks with either a nurse practitioner, a doctor, somebody in their community, and then they meet every couple weeks. And the statistics on, they talk about how to breastfeed, issues with their diet, like stuff that really encourage a healthy pregnancy. Long story short, the benefits are significant for both the mother and the baby. And then they created a program called Centering Parenting, which encourages, again, parenting practices, probably a lot of the stuff that we all need as parents that we may not know, all in small groups. So to your point, it's like we know how to get a healthy pregnancy, have a healthy pregnancy, how to raise a healthy baby. We know how to do that. The problem is there's an information block getting to people. We don't have, daughters living with their moms and grandmothers where you're passing down how to midwives and all that stuff and how to best do everything. It's been a cutoff again, not the like nanny state, but like, well, you get your health care through the healthcare, you go to the doctor, So anyway, long story short, there are ways for us. There are programs out there. We don't even have to invent them. We just have to grow them and expand them. What schools are doing breathing techniques and mindfulness-based programming for their kids, and how does that compare to a normal school? And we all know it's going to be unbelievable because you get the kid out of fight or flight mode. And we have all these kids in trauma. So you're eventually going to see test scores go up. We were at a conference the other day and people were talking about education policy this, education policy that. I said, look, I'm not here to be the skunk at the party, but if we don't handle our kids' brains that are in trauma, I don't give a shit what your 10-point education plan is. It's not going to matter because the kid's not going to be paying attention because their prefrontal cortex is offline.
Right.
We're into the amygdala and we're in the fight or flight mode. And if we don't get out of that, it ain't happening. So let's modernize the education system by saying, here's what the foundation of the education system needs to be. Okay, now where does AI come in? Where did some of these other things come in? But that's got to be the foundation. If your brain's in trauma, you ain't learning. And you see it with kids. I'm sure you're seeing it with your own kid. It works. It works.
Yeah. It's a grounding and centering. Again, like this is, I just don't understand. It just baffles me that like this is not everywhere. It's not mainstream. It's like, it's like, it just creates a better society everywhere if we're creating better kids. And it's just so disheartening. You mentioned
We're
earlier,
changing it though, Will. We're
we are,
changing it.
we are, we
Right.
are. I mean,
One
and like,
podcast at a time.
one podcast at a
Yes.
time, you know, like exactly. And like you know, it's interesting how people really need to like you, like yourself, like you, a lot of men and a lot of people come to this work because they're like, oh my God, I'm so stressed out, I'm so burned out. It's like, okay, what could I do, what could I do? And they've probably been hearing about kind of whispers or like in their ear, or you know, in society about like, oh, mindfulness meditation, and then they start doing it. It's like, holy fuck, like why wasn't I doing this 20 years ago? Like I mean, for real. I mean, it just makes it's such a game changer on so many levels, like on every impact on you personally, as well as like you in society as well. It's incredible.
The
You
royal
mentioned,
you, the
yeah,
royal you, man.
exactly, the
Capital Y.
global you,
Dude.
you know? Yeah. Well, you mentioned alternative therapies as well. You mentioned MDMA and psilocybin. Like, have you have any experience with that personally? And has that like taught you anything or changed anything? Because I know like these therapies are hopefully they're gonna like be more part of the conversation as well, because they're such an incredible, powerful healing agent.
Yeah, I have. And you know, I was on the Veterans Affairs Committee, and this conversation really started percolating, and more vets came back traumatized. And now really the leaders in the psilocybin MDMA initiatives in the country, like the tip of the spear again, are veterans who are saying, this saved my life. You know, I almost committed suicide, or I almost killed my kids, or like really, really heart wrenching tragedies. And you're damn right we should try this stuff. You know, I know it's maybe foreign to somebody, but you know, I think these are very, very important plant-based medicines to heal the trauma, and we should absolutely explore it as Americans and be leaders in it. Because if we can take on the trauma issue for, you know, drug addiction or treatment, and the recovery process that's so difficult for people, if this is having huge benefit for us, we're saving lives, and everybody should be for that.
Absolutely. And that's actually where Will and I, we worked together for 2.5 years, almost 3 years before we actually met. And we met in Costa Rica at a psilocybin retreat. And I can attest to the healing
awesome.
power of the psilocybin in my trauma. And we were there with several other veterans, and we saw it happen for them as well. And we've interviewed many since then that have also healed, not through the Western healing processes, but through mindfulness, meditation, and through plant medicine. So definitely do hope it becomes more mainstream in the coming months, years. Talking about mainstream, from your perspective, what do you feel are some practical steps that leaders can take to make mindfulness more mainstream, whether it's in education, whether it's in, you know, politics, wherever, the community? What do you think are the steps that we can practically take to make that happen?
I think really giving leaders the experience, you know, of having it, seeing what it does for you, and then you can then speak with some level of authority to, you know, your rank and file folk, whoever they may be. General Dunford, who was chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, for example, had a weekend training in mindfulness and promoted it within the Marines while I was in Congress, trying to get the military to do this. So that kind of initiative being taken by that kind of leader, I think, is really, really important. And just trying to demystify it too, I think, is really, really important. Which is why I think the sports piece is really important. You know, when I tell my 10-year-old that I want to sit down and do breathing techniques with them, I'm like, Kobe Bryant used to do this shit, bro.
Right.
You know, like,
Yep.
you like
Exactly.
Kobe, you like those Michael Jordan shoes you're wearing? Well, Michael Jordan used to do this, you know? And I'm trying to find the entry point, you know, in the culture for this. And then you guys use your podcast, and I'll try to use my platform to amplify these guys that are doing it. I mean, I'd love to do a show that we just go through all the athletes and bring them on and talk about training and sports and their meditation practice, or their centering practice or whatever they call it, And I don't think we can get too caught up in the label of it because it's so far beyond labeling. Once you sit and experience it, you get past your voice in your head. It's like God, like just the word God limits God. It's like now you've taken this infinite, omnipresent, whatever, and you put it into a 3-letter word. It's like, it's not going to work, and so like, I feel like mindfulness has that same kind of thing where you got a concept in your head now as opposed to the experience of being fully present, and that's when we watch these athletes, that's what you're watching. That's what you're in awe of. Complete and utter presence. You watch who's your guy, the point guard for the Knicks, Will? Brunson.
Oh, Brunson.
Oh my
yeah.
Lord, that guy is not thinking
Clutch.
about his golf game or what he had for lunch or
nothing.
Right?
Yeah.
He's like in
Locked
the
in.
freaking zone, man. You're like, you cheer for that. That's to be honored. And so, how do you get kids fully present and alive? And that's the other thing. Like I was saying, like, don't throw money at it. You need art in your school. You need music. You need silence. You need clubs. And you need all these different things. Why? Because you don't know what kid's going to gravitate towards what. And in that process, they're going to find what they loved. They're going to find their purpose, Will. Of like, oh my God, this is resonating with me. I love the chess club. I love the e-gaming. I love it. But if you go to a school that doesn't have any of that, then you're limiting the opportunities for your kids to self-actualize. They can't move up Maslow's hierarchy because they're living at a base level thing. And well, shit, you don't play football, you're screwed. Well, that sucks for that kid, right?
No, that's how, so many kids grow up. I grew up in a small town in Louisiana where the Friday night lights, that was a thing, right? The whole town shuts down for Friday to go watch football. And I didn't play football. I ran track and cross country. And you would have thought that I was, a weirdo with a third eye in the center of my forehead because I didn't play football. And the other thing, what's the saying? I think it's Einstein that like if you judge an intelligence on a fish and their ability to climb a tree, you're going to think they're an idiot. And I'm sure I butchered that, but paraphrasing it.
I got it.
Right.
You
get
tracking.
the gist, right? Yeah. So that's where we're at. I think we're trying to put everybody into a box, and if they don't fit in that box, then they're stupid, and we're like, okay, you're going to get kind of relegated to the streets or relegated to the jobs that only you're able to do. And from what we're seeing from your performance in standardized tests in education, you're dumb, so you're going to do some dumb jobs. But again, here's yet another soapbox that I'm getting onto with regards to education. And I also want to temper that with those who are educators and are doing the work. I very much appreciate you and applaud you. It's the system that could be improved, not so much what you as an individual educator are doing. So I just want to put that out there.
They're playing with one arm tied behind their back too, right?
Absolutely.
Focus on the testing and all that crap, taking the spirit out of why people got into teaching in the first place, and then the lack of community support and resources that are in those communities. And again, get back to safety. And there's only one way to get cops on the beat, right? You got to hire more cops, so you need money. There's no other way around it. But the education piece, and growing up, athlete, the whole 9 yards, I brought money back to my school district for the robotic program. Did you ever see these first robotic competitions?
Where with the fighting robots?
Oh my God! Well, they do all kinds of stuff. They give them a game
they
to
race
play.
And shit. Yeah.
Right, you throw a basketball, and it's got to be accurate. The kids literally have to build the robots, and the schools compete against each other. So you got kids with tattoos and green hair, and earrings wherever they got their rings somewhere, and like they're not on the football, but they're competing, and within that competition, leaders emerge to kind of lead the team. And so you're building leadership qualities, and kids are learning how to solve problems together, and they're participating in technology. Like, that's a modern school system. That's a modern, like, you put money behind that. Get more kids in that. That's good. Good. Keep going, And we focus on, there's a great book called The Failure of Nerve by Edwin Friedman, which I think everybody needs to read. It's fascinating.
What was it? The failure what?
Failure of Nerve.
Okay, failure of nerve.
Leadership in the age of the quick fix. Wrote it in the 90s, more applicable today than ever. But he has this one part of the book where he talks about, don't focus on the pathologies. Don't obsess with the disease or what we do wrong. Focus on what we do right. And that will grow, and that will become more important and more prominent in our society. And we do that a lot. We focus on this is wrong, that's wrong. And you've got to understand what's wrong. But he equates it to a virus. Don't focus on the virus. Focus on building your immune system. Like, how do I get my immune system? I take vitamins, what I eat, and I get my immune system up so I can fight these viruses off. And if you have money behind things that are being successful, those are going to grow. You're always going to have kids that fall through the cracks one way, shape, or form. There's no way around that. But
sure,
how do we get the majority of the people up and running? It's always like the elite kids and this and that. Well, how about the middle of the pack kids that are like, let's invest into them too to get them strong.
Yeah. I feel so much of the way we, like you were mentioning in that book, it's like we attack problems from the outside in, instead of re-engineering the human being from the inside out, and really give them like all the things we talked about. Mindfulness would be very helpful in order to really discover like who I am, what I can do, like the power I have, and just bring forth the human being at a very young age. And I wish and there's some educational systems that do that, or like Montessori, definitely helps like create like good kids and good students. And I wish there was more of that across society. And one thing that gets in the way so much is we're being programmed by the technology in our hands, like the social media and stuff like that. And it's creating a whole another way of like being in the world, always trying. I live in New York City, so it's like I see a lot of people expressing themselves in many, many different ways. And I see a lot of this expression playing to more likes on the fucking algorithm, which I'm like, oh my God. I mean, it really, it's a real thing. Let's just, before we close, can we expect a presidential run from you in 2028?
Oh, God.
Tim Kennedy, or Tim Ryan. Sorry.
When
we had Tim Kennedy in the show too. I just fucked up my names, our guest name. Sorry.
Well,
Sorry,
I think
Tim
that's
Ryan.
a Freudian slip there with the kid.
I think I would do a lot better on the ballot if it was Tim Kennedy.
All right. Well, what do you got? You think you can get a run again in 2028?
I don't know. I'll think about it. I do feel like I can contribute, and I feel like somebody in this space that we're talking about, can probably resonate, I would think, with a lot of people. So we're thinking about it. There's the governor's race in Ohio too,
that's true.
Next year. So we're looking at that. So we'll see. It'd be fun to try to implement some of this stuff.
Yeah, you and Vivek for Ohio governor, right?
Yeah, that would be fun.
He's a fun one to listen to and watch for sure. But
make sure you turn snippets of this episode over to your campaign team, because I'm sure it'd be fantastic for marketing.
Absolutely.
Or maybe don't.
I don't know. I'm either going to win on this or lose on this, but we'll find out.
I think you've expressed yourself very well today, Tim.
Thank you.
And we really appreciate you having on here. Anything you want to share about anything maybe to fill in the gap or the delta, that something we missed along the way?
Well, no, I just maybe put a bow on everything, is that when you're doing a mindfulness practice, your eyes are closed, your mind goes off, and you have a choice. Am I going to entertain this thought at some point, at the moment of awareness? Am I going to entertain this thought, keep going down that road, or am I going to choose to come back to my body, my breath? And I think we've lost the idea, generally speaking, that we have choices that we can make that send us in one direction or another. And if we want the country to be better, we got to make choices. Like, do I want to be right? Do I want to just be in a fight with somebody because of what I think is the answer? Or do I want to have, like, we don't want to choose to, like, try to actually figure it out? And these are little choices you make every day. And I think the practice helps us remember that this is constant choices every single day, every single moment, the moment is a choice to make.
Well, with that, Tim, we'd love to turn it over to you to kind of wrap the show up with that grounding practice that we had mentioned before we hit record, that final grounding practice, if you're still up for it.
Yeah. Doesn't need to be long, but like take all the time you want, Tim. Seriously. It's an honor to have you lead us.
I'd love to whip through a little Wim Hof right now. We do like a little...
Do a little inner fire breath.
Yeah.
Fired up.
I love me some Wim Hof, man. He just,
me too.
my days when I do that are just like, oh my God. So
infinitely
Tim,
better.
if you love the Wim Hof, get your ass to Spain on his summer experience. He does
I've seen the videos. Yeah.
I went in 2017. The guy is, you see him all these videos and stuff. He's the man. He is like real life.
Through, was that all the ice baths and all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it was an experience. So like we did like a few ice baths. We did a lot of breathing. We did a lot of hiking and stuff like that. And we just did. He's just amazing. Like literally, this is my little story. So we get there, and like there's 35 people internationally from all across the world and stuff. We all come there prepared for this experience. We got all these emails and stuff to talk about what we're going to do throughout the week. We sit down for our first dinner, and as we're eating or after or whatever, he comes up, he goes, all right, I just want everyone to know, fuck the program, everything you read, we're not going to do this week. And I was like, oh my God, like we're looking around, we're like, what the hell is going on? And then throughout the week, like, he's like, we're looking at each other, it's like, well, I guess we're going to walk barefoot in this hike. He goes, fuck the program. So it was just really funny. The guy, awesome. He's the real deal, dude. I mean, he is such a great man, and we're going to get him on the show eventually too. But if you can, I really highly recommend, like, just go hang with him. And he's a force to be reckoned with too. So maybe you can pull him over, and help to bring some of these ideas, right, to the hearts and minds of more Americans for sure.
Yeah.
But take it away, Tim. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. Let's do I do this one a lot. I do the in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8.
Yeah.
Can we do
4,
that?
7, 8. Yeah.
I love it.
All right. Let's close our eyes. We're going to inhale for 4, hold for 7, and exhale for 8. So the final 8 is much longer than the inhale for 4. So let's inhale, 2, 3, 4, hold, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, exhale, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you for that, Tim. Wonderful having you today. Really appreciate your time and sharing all your wisdom and hey, if you do make that run, in any time, let us know. We would love to help you, Tim. Like, you're obviously speaking our language, we want to see more of mindfulness and everything we talked about today, like getting it into society. So if you need to broadcast a message, you just let us know.
Awesome,
it'd be
man.
great to have you back on the show for sure.
I'll take you up on that. Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
All right.
So much.
Yeah,
it was
Tim,
so fun.
thank you. Yeah, it was a blast. Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you walk away with some new tools and insights to guide you on your life journey. New episodes are being published every week, so please join us again for some meaningful discussion. For more information, please check out mentalkingmindfulness.com.